We might have something. Yeah. Yeah, probably to share more. She said you might make some. I don't know. I'm not going. Get home.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. I see that you're eager and ready and waiting to go. So yes, you're seeing a strange face, and I know some persons are wondering why, but you know soon enough. Welcome, welcome, welcome to season 2 of Voices Behind the Mask, where we go, grow, and glow into our purpose, unmasking real people with real story. Now, this evening, we have a treat for you. We do have a wonderful, wonderful treat for you. Are you ready for that treat? Anybody? Yes. Show a reaction if you're ready for the treat, because it's gonna be. I see you, Elaine. I see you. I know that it's gonna be awesome because, guys, we have a very, very special guest with us. And I know that you're eager to know much more about her, as I am too. I know something, but I think there is so much more that we can find out about her. And with no further ado, guys, I want you to help me to make this person welcome. She's an educator, an entrepreneur, a preacher, a motivational speaker. She has written 3 books, of which 2 are educational. She's married to none other than Mr. David Foote, and will tell you that this union is a manifestation of her faith walk. She's a student, a past student of the Shortwood Teachers College, where she acquired a diploma in history and geography. She also holds a bachelor in resource management from the Management Institute for Development. She's also certified in mental health and life coaching. I'm not even going to tell you her name. Just listen up, there's more about her. She served as an educator in Jamaica for 20 years and also in the US of A. She's a proud member of Recharge Ministry, the Church Without the Walls in Georgia. Prior to that, she served in different capacities in different churches in North Carolina. Her passion lies in helping others overcoming their limiting beliefs and growing to purpose. She is the host of her talk show, Voices Behind the Mask, and also her Facebook Live Thought Provoking Tuesday. Guys, we have none other than Mrs. Alicia Foote, who holds the mantra that don't forget where you're coming from, but never stay there. Guys, let's make welcome this evening, Mrs. Foote, your host of Voices Behind the Mask.
Everybody.
All right.
I'm in the hot seat today. I'm not your host. I'm in the hot seat today.
Yes.
So let me introduce your host to you. So your host today is Mrs. Cassia Gordon Stewart, and she will be the one who will be hosting Voices Behind the Mask today. All right. So I'm just your guest.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you know what, guys? I've known this person all my life. And that's the beauty about sitting in the seat this evening, you know, just having her in the seat, and the switching is really awesome. And so we're going to hear so much about her. But the first thing I have to ask her, because I see some of you must know Alicia. I don't know Alicia Foote. I know Alderine Young. And so, guys, we are going to start off this evening banging, because who are those two persons? Who is Alderine Young and who is Alicia Foote?
All right. So that's my first question, right? Okay. I've been asked a question recently. Where did Alicia come from? So Alicia is actually my middle name. So everybody in Augustown, where I grew up, and like I said, you don't forget where you're coming from, calls me Lisa, because my middle name is Alicia. And so I wrote my first 2 books under the name Alicia Young prior to before I got married. So after I got married, I changed the name on my books, on the 2 first books, to Alderine Alicia Foote. So I just decided to start back the talk show. I just decided, you know what? I'm going to use Alicia, which is actually my name. Alicia is my middle name.
Okay, so there you have it, guys. So no more wandering. Alderine Young, Alicia Foote, same person. So we have nothing to worry about right there. Yes. And so, guys, if you were supposed to use 3 words to describe who you are, what would those 3 words be?
I have to use my first word will have to be a double 2 words in one. I'm a purpose pusher.
Okay.
That's one. I am a giver. And thirdly, I'm that person who never gives up. I don't know what it is. I use the word con, and you didn't ask me that question. I'll tell you where that came from. I remember when I was younger, my dad, I went to him about something. I don't remember what it was, but it's something that I could not do. And he said to me, there's no such word as can't. And that stayed with me throughout my life. So whatever I'm doing, I always find a way. I tell people all the time, I don't do problems, I do solutions. That's just who I am.
Okay. All right, awesome. And guys, that's something that we need to tap into. We don't do problems, we do solutions. And I'm happy that you made mention of your dad and Jamaica, because that's the next question. Give us something, man. What was life like back when you were young and coming up in Jamaica?
All right. So anybody who knows me know my homebody, and I've always been a homebody. There are people in my community who don't know me, and that's the truth, because I always stay home. I'm always inside the house. But I think what a lot of people maybe don't remember or don't know is that because I'm such a homebody, we usually have this portion of land, what we call upper.
Yes.
Am I losing you?
In biology and so on, I sit there and just watch the ants, anything that is crawling around, or it's just me and nature. We had a very large backyard, and I used to go away. I think my parents knew, because sometimes you hear them call her Lisa.
Yeah,
Lisa. I'm somewhere up there in the bush, sitting down by myself and just observing. And I think I carried that through life. Like I'm that type, I don't watch TV. And if you see me even on Facebook, a lot of people know that I'm a Facebooker. I spend a lot of time like in professional groups and stuff like that. Like I am just always looking for the next opportunity, looking for what's coming next. So I guess I just grew up with that. So that came from my childhood, always going away in the backyard somewhere by myself.
So do you consider yourself a loner?
This is what I tell people. And I met somebody who understood what I was saying. I had a conversation with someone recently. I told the person said to me, they're an introvert, but they're also an extrovert. So I think I'm both an introvert and an extrovert. I'm introverted because I spend a lot of time thinking, like I'm always thinking. If I'm around you and you see me go silent, I'm thinking about something, and most time it's very deep. But then I'm an extrovert because when I'm around people, I enjoy people's company. But then when I'm back in my own space, I saw my former principal from South Carolina. She's on. Hey, Miss Hawkins. I like even at school. I'll be at school and I'll be laughing, joking with everybody. But when I get home, I don't have anybody's like, I'm not the type of person who's gonna call people after I get home, because in that space, is my create space where I create. Whether it be with my hands, because I'm very good with my hands, I'm just always creating. So I'm both an introvert and an extrovert. And yes, you can be both.
Yes, you can. Most definitely you can. We have persons who cross over every now and then.
And I do.
I guess you're one of those persons.
When I'm in my space, I want to stay in my space and I want to create. And just to mention, when I was in South Carolina, I remember I went into this meeting and I never forget. The instructional coach asked the question. She said, what do you wish that your teachers knew about you? And I said, I wish they knew I was tactile, because I was in a science class. You know, I did the arts. I taught the art subject. I am a history geography specialist. But as I grew, the more I mature, is the more I understood that my hands, I loved working with my hands. So everybody know my mouth. Yeah. My pastor in South Carolina said my mouth is my gift. But my hands, I create things. Whatever it is, I create. So
you are a creative being, huh?
I create. I wrote my book and I did everything. I created my book cover. I did my graphics. If I have a business, I create my own websites. I have a business where whatever it is, whether it be something in the kitchen, I love the kitchen. I create. That's just who I am. So these are some things that people don't know about me.
About you, yes. And so they're finding out this evening. So I'm happy that you're sharing and you felt the need to share with us. And I am going to still touch, we're still in Jamaica. And so I want to ask you about your education in Jamaica. What was that like for you, and the different changes and stuff like that?
Okay, you're talking primary school all the way up?
Yes.
All right, I don't want to start at primary school. I want to start at basic school. I went to Bethel Basic School, right? I went to Bethel Basic School. We're just down the road from Augustine, where I'm from. And I remember Bethel Basic School. I remember the class I was in. I remember Bigger, who was our teacher. I don't know why students would call him Bigger, because right now looking back, I think that was very rude. I think we should have called him Mr. Bigger. So I went to Bethel, and then after Bethel, I went to Yorton. A lot of people didn't know that. My sister and I, we went to Yorton Primary. And if you read, just going to give you a little piece of some of these things are already in my book. At Yorton Primary, things were great. We used to have oh Lord, I forget his name now, but then there was that taxi man who used to take us to school, charter taxi, take us to school, and we used to go to school. I used to call my sister Fatty Rich Girl, so you know, you get
the nice life. That's so like the nice life.
You know who we were, you know. And at the time, you know, our family was very prominent in the community and so on. And but then life happened. You know, my parents, who had they were teenage parents, but they had good jobs. They were working at, both of them were working at Nestle, and they were getting good salaries and everything. But you know, things change, and what happened was that both of them, they were redundant in a lot of people, letting go a lot of people, and both my parents got redundant at the same time. And by this time they were apart. But after that, like, everything just went downhill. Now we had to go to Tulla Primary, because Tulla Primary was a school that you walked to. You know, you didn't have to have lunch money to go to school. For us, Tulla was rough. You know, anybody who is here who knows anything about Tulla, you know, there's Lane. It's now called Nelson, I think it's Nelson Mandela.
Yes.
Something, but back
Mandela.
Mandela, it didn't have a name. For us, and everybody who knew it, it was just Lane. That was what it was. And so there were times when my sister and I would meet at some cross section, you know, or some mutual point through Lane, and we'd have to exchange at one back, you know. And the good thing was that we're never, and that was, I think now I look back, that was just all God. You know, we had the opportunity to never be on the same shift. We're never on the same shift.
That was a blessing.
So met, you know, and it was a shift school, you know, bless the Lord, it was a shift school. And so we're able to exchange bags, you know. And so after Tulla, regardless of everything that was going on, things were really rough. Sometimes you got home, you know, there was nothing. And I'm going to share something that I've never shared. You know, people are going to look at me like, oh my God, she did that. Yes. I remember there were days we were going to school and our parents, we just had to wait until we get back home to get something to eat. So this day, I miss mommy $2, put on, I'm going to take it up. I went to school that day, I'm going to tell them my belly full.
You're rich.
Get the gist of what
you
happened.
went to school rich.
Yes, I was rich that day. I'm going to fill my belly. I'll never forget. Now looking back, you know, as an adult, you understood, you know, what was, and I remember my mother run me down, you know, and she asked me, did you see it? And I was like, no, you know. So I know she's on somewhere and she has never heard this confession. So she's hearing it for the first time. So my sister knows the story. And she always joke about it with me. And, you know, things were bad. But regardless of that, I did my exams and I passed to St. Mary's College. So here I was at St. Mary's College. The first year was grand. You know, everybody chipped in. My parents had it rough, but everybody chipped in. You had your bag, you had your books, you had everything. But second form was something else. You know, no school fee was paid. I think between third to fifth form, no school fee was paid because there was no money to pay any school fee. As I said, my parents had split. My dad usually go to gambling, and when he gambled, he would, that was how he sent me to school. They did the best they could. At one point, he was farming. So they were doing what they could do. Some mornings I went there was no lunch money. You know, there was nothing. And those were the days when you see me walking through Augustown. I always knew school was my way out. That was the one thing I knew. As a young person, I had some aunts who I saw because of their education, they progressed. They were not living where I lived. They lived in Meadows and those places, you know, that we consider quote unquote at the time where the rich people live. So for me, I saw that and I understood that education was my way out of what was going on. And I also understood the more I matured, the more I understood that my parents were doing their best. You know, and so there were days when there was no lunch money from nobody, you know, and so I would be walking through the community. I don't care who was looking at me, tears streaming down my face. I was not bawling, but I was crying, tears streaming on my face because I wanted to go to school. And so most time my mother would remind me that I would tell her, give me the lunch money. You know, just give me the lunch money. Give me the fare, sorry, because there was no lunch money. you know, and you and I went to the same high school. And so I don't know if you remember Fudgy. So my trick at school when I did have a little bit of money was to go to Fudgy and buy one ice cream. And so I'd be licking that ice cream right through lunchtime, you know, because that was lunch for me. And so I understood that for me, getting out was was getting an education. And so I completed high school. You asked about education. Do I talk about college or you leave it at high school?
I want to interject right there because you said something that you know, or young people nowadays, trust me, I'm wondering if they're looking at life like this, like education is my way out. You know, because we are living in a time here, especially in Jamaica, where I don't think most of them are even looking that direction, that education is the way out. But thank God for those who do. And another thing that came out of what you said is that all of these experiences, talk to me. How did this make you become the person that you are today?
In high school, I had my own mantra. And this was me. And if you understand the dialect, I'll say it in the dialect and then I'll say it in the standard English, whether it's American or UK. Yes. All right. Nobody no better than me. I'm no better than nobody. And so for me, I understood my background. I understood what I was going through. I understand my situation. But I also maintained the fact that there was nobody, I don't care how much they had materially more than me, they were not better than I was. But I also had to remind myself that I was not better than anybody else. And so that is what carried me, you know, understanding that there was I always believed, now I can articulate it. But back then I could not. I always believed that there was something inside of me. There was something inside of me. I was going somewhere. I knew where I wanted to go. Like I was in high school, I knew I was going to become a teacher. I decided I was going to become a teacher. But leaving high school, it was not that easy because now your parents did what they could. And leaving high school, I understood that that is where their journey ended.
Yeah.
Because now I had other siblings. Like I said, my parents weren't together. My mother was had now remarried. And so I at 17, unlike in the United States where you leave high school at 18, I was now on my own. And so I went and I looked a little job in the community. I got a job at Mother Basic School. And it was nothing. And I was like, okay, it's like I understood that there was, I always believed that there was more. And anybody who knows me, even until today, they know that I believe that there is more. And that's why I push people, because I think I've lived at every level. And I've had the experiences at every level. And so I think I understand the levels, if we can term it as that. And so after that, I got a job at a hardware, Bannon's Hardware in Linstead. That was when Bannon had just started out, and I forget the street, Fletcher's Avenue. At the time, they were on Fletcher's Avenue, and I got the job there. But anybody who knows me know I don't count to save my life. I'm a talker, I'm a reader, I'm a writer, but I don't count. Okay? And so the people, they gave me a job, and it was cashiering. Now, back then, this was in the 90s. So back then you didn't have a cash machine. They didn't have that. Bannon was just starting out. They just started out. And so the poor people, they gave me a calculator. And every week I was short. Every day I was short. And so I remember when I left that job, because I think I got something like $100 and something for the week, and I had to pay fare. And when at the end of the day was finished, and I know Cherry's on here somewhere. I used to have to go home and get a little food from Cherry and so on, because all the little money I had was done. You know, bless her. You know, I blessed. To God be the glory for what in my book I call these people destiny help, not destiny helpers, destiny influencers, because these are the people who influence your life. And she was one of those individuals. And I just walked off the job. I walked off the job, leaving money, the few little change I had for me. And I remember somebody came to my house. They didn't even know I got the job, and they said to me, did you still want a job? And I said, yes. I said, well, there's an opening at Content Agricultural Products in Bog Walk. Now, when I went to that job, I had more subjects than many of the people who were working in the office. I didn't have enough to go to college yet. I had 3, I needed 4. And when I went, and we're talking about my educational journey. And so when I went there, I decided after three years, I knew I was going to become a teacher. I knew there was no doubt. To the point where I applied for teachers college. There was a point where I applied for teachers college with my 3 subjects, knowing the people won't take me, but I applied anyway. And I sent myself back to IPUS. And when I went back to IPUS, I did enough subjects to make sure that I had more than I needed. But that was rough too. So here I was sending myself back to school, going to work, having to get up and go to Content at 7 o'clock in the morning. But then there was a time when my aunts were now living in Portmore. So I had to travel to IPUS in Spanish right after work, 4 o'clock. Then after that, I'm in Portmore, and then I'm leaving Portmore 5 o'clock in the morning to get back to work at 7 o'clock. So sometimes people see you, they don't know your journey. Yeah. And then in the middle of it all, the money ran out. I couldn't pay for the next semester. The final semester was here and I couldn't pay it. So here my friends were at work under the big tree, gilling off the pea soup, and in Jamaican terms, enjoying themselves and laughing. And then I was under a loan, and we talk about being a loner now. Yeah. I was under a loan, and we say a lone coconut tree. Oh, I was the only person who could hold right there, you know, on that little concrete that surrounded the coconut tree, with my biology book and my math book, still trying. I don't know why I was still trying at math, but I was still trying, okay? And so I was there studying, because now for the rest of the content, I had to teach myself. So I guess there my teacher journey began. So now I had to teach myself. So the long and short of that story was that I got all the subjects. I have English in GCE and CXC, because I decided that at the time I didn't get English, and I decided I get in it. So I finished with English in GCE and CXC. Then I went to college. College was something else again. You know, college was never easy. And so in an effort to take care of myself, by the second year of college, I had a little help before, but by the second year of college, I had to take care of me. And I opened my full-blown store. Here, my entrepreneurial skills started coming into being. I opened a full-blown store on the people in campus. That is something you're not allowed to do. And I was selling everything. So I'm struggling, going to Alpha Tree, buying my goods, coming, I sell from a pin to an anchor. And then I'm working with Grace on Saturdays, doing merchandising, promotion, on Saturdays with Grace, because they had a new product called Plus, which didn't really take off at the time. And here I was promoting Plus, selling my goods. You know, so I was hustling. I'm always hustling. So here I was, you know, so I'm a born hustler, people. So here I was, you know, so here I was selling and doing all that. And, you know, and I like to say the long and short of it all was that I went to valedictory service and I completed college. And after college, for the next 14 years, I was working at McGraw High. And, you know, this was all God, you know, this. And so that was my journey. Yeah. And I'm just giving you a synopsis. And did I cry? Yes, there were days that I cried, but I understood that I had to finish my race. And I also understood that when I got to one point and I finished that, there was somewhere else to go. Because like I said in my book, there's always a next level. Yes. There's always the next level.
Most definitely. And for those persons who came on late, yes, this is Voices Behind the Mask Season 2 with our guest, who is actually the host of this program. Yes. And so she is Mrs. Alicia Foote. Now, I'm going to dive into a little area of your life, which, you know,
And by the way, people, I don't know the questions. I'm really in the hot seat, all right?
All right, so before I even ask the question though, let me tell you a little secret. Girl, we went to school together, we were in the same era and stuff like that, and nobody would have known. not a soul would have known. So right here I'm sitting and I'm like, what? This girl was always having it together, locked and stuff like that. So I'm here sitting down and I'm like, what is she talking about? I mean, because I always saw them, I click at them, and they had it together. They knew what they wanted. As she said, she knew she was going to be a teacher. And so this is the truth, and she worked towards it. So we're moving on to this area of her life that I think that might be a little ticklish for her, but I have to touch it. And so we're moving into some kind of personal, part of her life and her journey. We don't reach USA yet, guys. We don't reach USA yet. It's still in Jamaica. And so I'm going to ask her to just tell us a little about your journey. I mean, in Christendom here, and you being involved and, falling in love and all of these things. Yes.
All right. Church. I got saved, and it's funny, I had that conversation with my husband today. I told him that I never got saved. We're having a conversation about something, and I said, I never got saved in your typical church setting. I got saved in high school. And you mentioned something, you mentioned the clique I was a part of. Yes, I was part of a crew, and we were a crew, but we were a Christian crew. And initially, I was not a Christian, but we usually have a prayer meeting, but these people dragged me behind them. And so we usually have a prayer meeting every Wednesday in the clothing and textile room. And I always went to the prayer meeting. I had no church going to at the time, but I went with them because they were all Christians. And what do? You go to Rome, you do what the Romans do. And so at 15, I remember one Wednesday in the prayer meeting, the Spirit of the Lord literally came down in that room. And I tell people that my journey with God has to do with my experience with God. And so in that setting, I mean, people were just speaking in tongues. I felt the presence of God in that room. I never knew what it is. I used to go to church. Like I said, at that time, I was not going to any church. And I felt the presence of God. Never feel the presence of God before. Never knew if there was even presence of God. I knew I go to church and I said to sing Christian songs and all those things. And that was it for me. That was my turning point. And I remember after leaving that prayer meeting, I started seeking a church to go to. I lived with my father for a little bit, and he used to send me to the Adventist church. And so I went back to the Adventist church. But by now, I was wearing my pants and my jewelry. And I'm going to be very honest with you. And as I was honest with my husband today, and as I said to him, and it just to me, and then they weren't clapping. Let me it's from using the dialect, because I know there are a lot of people who don't understand it. And they weren't clapping and jumping and all of that. And I like the excitement, right? I like to dance and I like to sing. And at the time, that was not going on. I think they have changed a little now. And so I was still searching. And I remember one individual from the group invited me to her church because they were having a crusade. Now, from I went to this church, I was sold, because I see these people walking around in pants and earring and jewelry and everything. I said, this is it. This is it. Because I can go to this church. And that's the truth. I chose my church at the time on this premise. And so like I was saying to my husband today, I like my jewelry. And I said to him, that was how I chose my church at the time. I could still wear my shorts, still wear my pants, still wear my jewelry, and I could praise the Lord. And so my whole outlook, on Christianity was maybe different from a lot of people. But my journey was like any other teenager. You got saved, you get excited. But the older you get, for me, there was no serious relationship in high school, but after high school, then, you end up straying and went in paths. By the time I was working, I got into a relationship and I was, not doing the things of the church. Let's put it that way. And I'm just being honest. Sometimes we have, and I always tell people, especially in my church, I tell them all the time, talk your truth.
Yes.
Talk your truth, because the word of God says the truth shall set you free. And so I always knew God had purpose for me. and not just any purpose. Like I said, the same way I live my let me say my career, you know, as the same, or the, I'm trying to find the terminology to use. Every aspect of my life, I understand next level. Let me put it that way. And my Christian journey was the same. I knew God had a plan for me. But was I always walking in that path? No. I was in leadership positions in the church, in youth fellowship. Nothing most of my time in church, you know, I was still a youth. And so I led at one point, I was a president of the youth fellowship. And I ended up marrying. Yes, I was married before. I ended up marrying a young man in the church, getting married too. I think, you know, getting married to a young man in the church who we all grew up in the church together. That never worked out. And like, if you read my book, you'll also understand that I try not to, like, I could always say what happened, but I don't want to mess anyone's character up, you know? And so I'm not even saying who was right and who was wrong, but what I'm going to say is that relationship never worked. Another thing with my journey as well is that I also face church hurt, just like a lot. I tell people that there's almost nothing you can tell me, no place that you have been that I've never been to, you know. Just like I say, I backslid, come back, you know. I baptized 2 times because, you know, because the second time around I felt I needed to, like it was just for me a recommitment to God. And so I know that walk too. And I know church hurt because after the breakup, so that I can speak about that part, after the breakup with my ex-husband, the church thought, and, you know, or let me say it this way, because I don't want to speak of the church in a wholesale manner. People were approaching me and saying to me, you should stay, you know, because you are already married. You should stay because you are a Christian. And, you know, I wasn't rude to anybody, but in my mind, I was like, you don't know my story. You know, you don't know what I'm going through. You don't see my tears. You don't see what I am going through. Everybody knows Alderine or Lisa from the exterior. You know me, you know the exterior that I put on, because for me, I have to bounce back. I'm a bounce backer, if you can call it that, right? And so, because I don't always go to people and tell them what I'm going through. And so I got blamed. I got blamed on a lot of levels for what happened. A lot of lies were told. And so I can't even blame some of the people who believe, because the lies were really well told, if I can say that. And I never justified. I never tried to justify to anybody. And I tried to, because to me, if you want to believe that side of the story, but just as my book says, broken but not shattered, I was broken. You know, and then I got to a point, still talking about you, got to a point where I stopped going again. You know, I stopped going. And this time I remember coming from work, because I was now teaching, you know, coming from work, grabbing a bottle out of the fridge, turning it to my head, you know, lying on the floor, just crying, just weeping, and getting up in the mornings with a bright smile on my face, ready for work again. And so people never knew my pain, because my pain was not on display. And that is why I do what I do. And I try to help people to get through their own pain, because I know you can stand in your pain, but I know it's not easy to stand in your pain, because I'm that person, and I don't put on. So it's not a case where I'm putting on a face. This is my day face. That's how I call it. This is my day face. This is my face that tells me that, listen, girl, you have something to do. And regardless of whatever you're going through or whatever you have been through, listen, you did it in college, you did it in high school, you did it in primary school. Come on now, you're an adult. You can do this now. you know? And so I learned, and that's why the last chapter in my book says, stand in your pain and thrive in your discomfort, because that is not easy, but it's something that you have to do. So I think in a nutshell, that was my journey, which is a truth of my journey in Christendom, in Jamaica.
In Jamaica, because we're still in the islands. We're going to shift to the US of A shortly. But I just want to say to somebody out there, this is about unmasking real people, you know, with real stories. And I hope that you are getting something from it, and that you yourself are thinking that, oh my word, I thought I was alone, but here I am listening. I'm not alone. I have help. And so as we continue this interview, we're going to just slide over to the US of A. How did you get there?
Oh, Lord have mercy. Oh, Lord have mercy. No, switch back a little bit to Jamaica. After my ex-husband and I separated, I went on and I built my house. I decided I was not going through NHG because I still wanted to keep my NHG points. And so I did everything out of pocket. No, I was alone. I was doing everything by myself. And I depleted my funds, like max credit cards, went into all the savings I had, you know. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to get back all of this money. And the only way, when I like I tell you, I do solutions, not problems. And I sat down and I said, okay, Jamaica not going to do it for me. I have to go somewhere the dollar is a little stronger. And so I decided I was going to look a job outside of Jamaica. And by now I had a postgraduate diploma in human resource management. And so I had that to also carry me. So I was looking job all over the world. That's the truth. The job I ended up getting in the United States, not to mention the fact that my entire family is in the US, but I told my mom, I don't want to live there, right? But no, your back is against the wall. You're looking job anywhere, not necessarily the US. So my intention was not necessarily to come to the US. It happened. And so I would put my earphones in at school when I had free time, sit on my computer, and I blocked out the entire staff room, because I would, like I tell you, when I said next level, it's next level for me. And when I reached out to this the group who gave me the job, they said that there was no position for social studies teachers. And so I wasn't looking there. I was actually waiting on an answer from Turks and Caicos for a human resource management job. So that summer I came to New York on vacation with the intention. I bought a ticket from New York to the Bahamas, and from the Bahamas back to Jamaica. So I remember before I left Jamaica, like I said, at that time, I really wasn't where I was supposed to be with God. So I went to my cousin and I said to her, you know, can you pray with me? Because I just felt uneasy. Mm-hmm. And she looked at me when she was finished and she said, are you tithing? And I said, no. And she said, start pay your tithes. So even though I was going to church hurt, it wasn't I didn't care. I had to pay the church, pay to God what belonged to him. And so I started tithing. So while I was in New York, papers just started coming in. No, here they said I didn't have any position. Paper just started coming in. And the long and short of that, I had to cut it short. I had to go back to Jamaica. I had 2 weeks to pack up my life in Jamaica. 2 weeks. Wow. To do everything, get all the paperwork I needed and pack my life up. And come to, I didn't even rent my house or anything. That's a story, all of this, own all the things. And I tell you about, it's like, for me, that a lot of people don't understand. I tell people I lived a life of pain, from one painful experience to the next, but it never stopped me. Anybody who knew me, people would always ask me, how do you do it? How do you stand in all of what is going on around you? You know, and so I came to the US, got a job, and then the pain experience wasn't over. After 1 year, they let go all international teachers. When I say all, every international teacher. And so I was living with my roommate, and lo and behold, everybody get job. I was the only person who didn't get a job. And I think at the time I thought I was the only one. There was one other person. And so I went to a job fair, and at the job fair, I met this principal, and long and short, the principal gave me a job. I met someone outside from the program from the Philippines, and I went inside, you know, anybody knows me. And I went inside and said, do you have a science job? You have a job for a science teacher? And the person said, and the principal said, yes. And hence I ended up at Estill High School in South Carolina. where I taught for the next 5 years. So I did 6 years in the US and I taught there for 5 years. And like I said, my past principal is on, today. But at the time, she was my assistant principal at the time, and so I stayed there for 5 years. So again, like I tell people, when I got to the USA, and then things were not easy. So here you were, like, this is how I explained to somebody. I felt like I was right out of college again and starting life from scratch. It's not a bed of roses. A lot of people think that coming here, it's a bed of roses. They'll send you to schools where you have to drive. So right away, you need house, you need car, you need clothes, and they're sending you to places where you don't know winter. So I came here with all my summer clothes. I was cold, I remember I was even showing my husband the other day, we were passing a place and I was saying, I bought my first shoe at that thrift store in South Carolina. My first winter boots at that thrift store because I couldn't afford to buy. And then here I was coming from Jamaica. Anybody who know me could by this time, leaving Jamaica, I act like 10 fireside. Bag match, shoes match, this. But you know what? God brought me here and taught me, because I never understood finance. I had no financial management skills. And so to me, I was broken again, but not shattered, because God was teaching me financial management. I remember and let me tell you how God sealed this. I remember towards the end, about 3 years to the end of my tenure at the school I came from, I was a history teacher and they shifted me to government and economics. So Miss Hawkins, hear this hear this now, because now, you're saying things that people never knew. So when I went into that class, I realized that these were 9th grade students. And I taught basic economics, but what I taught most was entrepreneurship, because I realized that what the economics they wanted these kids to learn will not help them. And so because my subject was not state tested, I taught my students basic economics. And as a result, every year we had PBL, which is project-based learning, and we had to put on. So I put on an expo where my students would show. I know at one point, Miss Hawkins, remember this, I had them coming into my room and we did something similar to Shark Tank, where my present their companies. And so here again, I was learning skill sets. I was always an entrepreneur. Now I'm learning. I had the hands-on experience, so now I'm getting the academic side of it. And so people might ask the question, how can she teach this when yes, because I was actually teaching my students to write their business plans. I was teaching my students to make their websites. I was teaching my students how to understand how to go out there. And I even had students, one particular student at a business, I was doing something, barbering. No, he told me a little before I left that he was now doing this as a business. So I saw how this helped them. So yes, so that's in a nutshell, that was my journey. It was not a bed of roses, like I said, but one thing I never mentioned, and I failed to mention, I need to mention about South Carolina. And again, Miss Hawkins, I need to call your name a lot today. She's a part of this church as well. She's a pastor as well. She wasn't the pastor of my church, and the AME, and not the AME Zion like in Jamaica, the Poker Church them. And I need to clarify that. This is African Episcopal, regular church, no Poker Church. Okay. Now, I
regular church. Amen.
Amen. So I remember I didn't have a church to go to. Still wasn't anywhere with God, and I never had a church to go to. And I had to give up my car. I tell you, I went through some stuff. I made a decision, by the way, I didn't have to. I made a decision. I came to the United States with $3.1 million worth of loans in Jamaica. And I came here to pay it off. And so one of the things I did was that I gave in my car because based on the arrangement, it was too much. And so in my head, I started planning. I tell you, there are so many things that happened. I can't tell you everything, but that was one of the things I went through. So I never had a car, but there was a church right across the road. So I started attending this church. I told you about my church hurt. Now, here was a church, and I feel teary-eyed right now, that healed me. I tell you, broken but not shattered. If you're broken, you can come back. So this is, I don't know if Sister Nisa or anybody else is on today from South Carolina, but I can tell you this. There were mothers. The church was filled with mothers. And these mothers healed me. I remember my first business. I went to Sister Glenn and I called her by name and said to her, I need to put on a dinner sale, because I want to raise some money, because I have this business that I want to do. And I never forget, I went to church and she just stood up the day. By this time, I was very active in church. I was preaching, I was leading the dance, I was in everything. Head cook and buckle washer. And she stood up and she said, one of her own wants to start a business and we're going to help her. And let me tell you something. I think the only thing I did for that dinner sale was that I cooked the curry chicken, because I love my curry chicken. I cooked the curry chicken. They did everything. And I never forget, when the dinner sale was over, I mean, everybody chipped in. Every single person in that church. I wasn't asking them to. I was going to put everything up front. All I needed were, because she did very good dinner sales, was her to, show me, what to do. And they did everything. And when it was over, she handed me $1,000 from the sale. And from that, I started my first business that I did here in the US. And I won't go into what I did, but I started that business. So like I said, my healing came through that church. Those mothers loved me. They loved on me. Those people loved me. And I was able to make, I was able to grow again. I was able to, internally, outwardly, I tell you, I got my go-getter self going, but inwardly I was able to heal because I got involved in that ministry.
Okay, so guys, you know that in our churches, find a church mother, yeah? And those persons that are online who are fitting that slot of being or to become a church mother, please do due diligence to our young people and be there for them, and so broken, but not shattered. And a lot of us have experienced brokenness, some of us still shattered, and we need to regroup and come again. And so, it's such an awesome thing that we can be here just talking about your story, Mrs. Foote.
Just one thing that I think I never mentioned. I keep mentioning Miss Hawkins, but I also, sometimes you have to publicly say to people, don't scatter roses when they're gone.
Yeah.
My first principal, awesome. I had a second principal who gave me help. Again, at that time, Miss Hawkins was always serving as assistant principal. But what I described myself, even today, I said to somebody, Miss Hawkins just have a big heart. And I went through hell, and I'm going to be very, very honest. The school I was coming from, I went through hell, but it was not her. She was that cushion, she was always that cushion. I remember my last day in the school, and I think she recognized that something was happening. And the person was there. She said to the person, give me a minute, and I remember she said to me, she said, Miss Young, because I was still Miss Young at the time. She said, Miss Young, I'm not going to turn in your computer. I'm going to hold on to it. Because I think she was basically saying to me, I know you have had a rough time. And she has said that to me, but I hope you come back. I think because of what had happened leading up to that, and I won't go into that. Like I said, my job, I don't mar people's character.
Yeah.
I could call names, but I don't want to, because at the end of the day, in Jamaica, we have a saying, every tub of his dump on their own bottom.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that person to mar anybody's character in a public forum. Or even if I, if I need to speak to somebody privately, that's fine, but in a public forum, no. So I just want to say to Miss Hawkins right now, and if I don't know if Sister Nisa or anybody else from the church is here, some people I've spoken to, some I haven't spoken to in a long while. Thank you. Thank you for those days, because that you were my cushion. Because one thing we have to understand, God is going to put fire. If you look at my book, let me show you my book. You see this fire at the bottom of the book? It represents something. This whole thing represents something. God will put fire right beneath you to get you moving.
Yeah.
My journey in South Carolina was just that. A journey, a part of my story. And God had to pivot me. And that fire that he put right beneath me was a necessity. So I don't begrudge anybody or hold anything against anybody, because it was necessary. Yeah. It was a necessity. But I'm thankful for the people who God sent in that season to stand in the gap with me and to cushion me. And just to let them understand that you're appreciated.
And I see some person saying amen, and I know they know themselves. And you know what, guys? She did it. We can all do it, right? And we just have to find that thing. Yeah, God have to send some fire. Yes, some of us need some fire. Yeah, and I'm talking about myself too. Probably God needs some fire.
To move.
I've got some fire already and I moved, and God is saying, hey, it's time to move again. So probably I need some fire. And so, God does his thing in his timing and his way. And so he moved you, right? Because you disappeared for a while. Yes. You just pull off a disappearing act. And I'm like, where's Adarine? Normally she'll be commenting on my page, doing that, what was that disappearing act about? I mean, I don't know if anybody else noticed, but you did pull off a disappearing act on us at one point in time. So what is that disappearing act about? And I think that would just lead us into Mr. Foote.
Okay. So yes, and you use the words correctly. I disappeared. After I remember back to South Carolina, the Lord had said to me, before I started working in the church the way I was working, the Lord started working on me. And the Lord said to me, I need you for myself. And the Lord said to me, you're not going to date anybody. So during my season in South Carolina, children were carrying to school, they were carrying their fathers, their uncles, people in the church wanted me to marry their sons, their cousins. But the Lord had me, working for him. And I said to people, I don't say work, I was running for God. I was running for God in this season. And I was doing everything that he wanted me to do. I was doing, like recently I spoke to somebody at the church and I said to her, and when she explained to me what she was going through at the time, I said, I never knew, but I told her before I left what she was going to do. I said, I couldn't tell you in totality, but I was your proxy. I was standing in the gap until it was time. So it was just a part of my journey. And so in that season, I was not dating anybody. And so yes, there were people who came. I remember one particular person came, and the person was like, when I said, yes, I'm on a sabbatical for God. And this person said to me, and by this time, it's now I realize that people all over are just written me off. They're just written me off. They're like, okay, she's not going to marry to anybody. She's just God, baby. I guess, after getting married, I realized that because I heard some comments and people said, I'm like, okay, but so that was what was going on. And the person, asked me the question, when is your sabbatical up? I said, that's between me and God. And, that went on for maybe almost 3 into almost 4 years. And I guess that's why people wrote me off and think that, that was it for me. But I knew I was in my corner saying to God, I said, listen, God, you know, the one thing I want more than anything else is my family, you know. But sometimes you have to get to a place with God and just tell him, do what you want to do. Let your will be done. And I remember I said to God, I remember one day I said to God, I said, God, this is what I want. You know, I want a husband, I want a family. But if you want me to spend the rest of my life just working for you, here I am, Lord. And a lot of these times that I was saying this, tears were streaming down my face because I was in some deep prayer and bawling and kneeling, you know. And I remember a sister prayed for me once, you know, and I say I won't call names, but the person is on, they know themselves. And I remember when she prayed, and then I'm looking through the door because I think my husband going to walk through. You know, because I mean, she calling him out. And yeah, so that was it. And then when I disappeared, I felt a pull, you know, as far as first of all, I had to meet my current pastor to meet my husband, right? And at the time, no, you know, God said he wanted me for a year. It's almost running into 4 years. So I'm saying, what's going on, God? That was my conversation with God. I'm like, what is going on? Where's the husband? And I remember I met my pastor, my current pastor, and I like somebody else. And I said, like, you know, I was really, really caught up with this person, and no relationship or anything, but just caught up with this person. I'm like, okay. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, God, this must be the husband. And I was seeing some signs, but God was actually Let me tell you something. God showed me my husband before I met him. He showed me people who surrounded him before I met him. And I remember going on Facebook one day, looking through his pictures and saw the person. And I'm like, my God, I didn't need anything else to know that this was my husband, because I knew, because God had me praying around him before I met him. I didn't know him from Adam. We're in 2 different states. I know he wasn't even in Georgia. We're in 2 different states. I know it's not going to come on because my husband is not the person. You know, he's not like me. He's listening, but he's nothing like me. And I remember after my past, I was and I'm going to be very frank, you know, sometimes your heart get broken. And I think I am equipped to talk to the single people because I spend most of my life single, right? I'm not even married 1 year yet, right? But you know what you know. And I remember I was going through, Miss Hawkins is here again. Man, Miss Hawkins, I love you. I was going through a whole lot, and I had some time off. I had time, you know, so I took 3 days off from work. And I remember coming to Georgia, and at the time I was between both churches, and I never church hop, but there was just a pull. And then a pastor out of UK, which is now a very good friend of mine, called me one day and said, "Are you moved?" I made a delivery. You know, I was doing business, like I tell you. So I made a delivery on Valentine's Day, coming home, and the Lord was saying to me, "You are moving, and you're moving, and you're moving to Georgia." And I'm saying, "God, what you talking? I haven't met my husband yet." And I said, "God, what you talking about?" And if you don't get this now, you're not gonna get it again. Because this part of the story I don't tell, you know. But sometimes you have to tell your testimony. And I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "How can I move to Georgia? I don't have the resources to move to Georgia." And I was arguing with God, and I stepped in, and never forget, I had a late order to do, and I rushed right into the kitchen. And on my phone, I see the pastor said to me, and she's one who don't like to be put out there, so I'm not calling her name. And she said to me, "We weren't friends yet either. Are you moving to Georgia?" That was just a question. And I said, "God," I look on the phone and I look up and I laugh. And I look on the phone and I look up and I laugh. And I said, "God, you are omnipresent. If I never knew, I proved it today." And I texted her back and I said, who told, no, in good pattern, I said, "Who tell you?" Meaning, who told you? And she said, "I'm here in my kitchen." And the Lord said to me, "You're hesitant, but you're moving to Georgia." couldn't see how.
Mhm.
So by the time I went on that 3-day and thinking, this person was going to say, who I like you, blah, 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 and all those things, the person sent me a message, blam, I have no feelings for you. And I'm going to be frank, And I was like, I just sat there numb. I know my pastor knew this person, so I just stretched the phone. I couldn't even talk. It's like I got an injection. And I stretched the phone to her. And she looked at me and she said, do not cry. She said, do not shed a tear. Now, right in the middle of my broken heart, she stretched her phone to me and said, what do you think about this person?
Okay.
Now I look at the phone, I look at her and say, I wonder if it's crazy, And I said, and I look back at her and I said, I don't think anything at all about this person. And I remember the following day I was coming back. I had 4 hours to drive back to South Carolina. I was coming back and she came upstairs. It was in the middle of COVID, so she was working and she came upstairs and she said to me, say hi to my friend. And then she went on the phone and said, say hi to my friend. And so here I was, take the phone, I want to tell my pastor, I said, no, give me no phone. I don't want to talk to anybody because I don't. And then this person, nice voice came on the phone and I started talking. And I mean, the conversation was going so smoothly, like, okay, you know this person a long time. I'm like, okay, whatever. So he was like, can I get your numbers? I'm like, okay, fine. So on my way back home, he called. I was actually in a prayer meeting. And I said, I'm on the phone. I don't know who he was really. So I didn't want to tell him, the type of Christian I was, or deep mean, I'm a God. And that's because me don't know you yet. And so I said, I'm on the phone and I'll call you back. And so I called back and so I spoke with him through the Bluetooth. No, I wasn't on the phone on my ears. And I spoke with him and we spoke and he all the way home. So there he was sending me pictures. Like, Lord have mercy. And I got home. There's one picture that grabbed me though. He was tall. And then when I looked at it, and I'm like, okay, my heart break right now. I don't have no time. Let this person down easy. And so I remember going to work and the following day, the Lord said to me, shut that door. And I sent a text and I said to the other, I said, God is going to break you. This is not a Christian. I said, when he breaks you, the only thing you'll have is your voice. And the Lord said to me right away, say, call your husband. I was like, and let me tell you, I called my husband that day and we never came off the phone. He was in a totally different state. He was, and let me tell you something very powerful. He was not in Georgia, but he was actively searching for a home in Georgia.
Okay.
So again, that for me was confirmation that, and my pastor later told me she didn't know him. She didn't know him. This was her husband's friend because he kept saying to me, I don't know. I guess Pastor Carly, I'm going to call her the name. I don't know Carly like that. He kept saying, my husband, he talk good English, It's not like me who go down the pat all the time. So he's like, I don't know Carly like that. I don't know Carly like that. He's Jamaican. And then I got to understand she didn't know him either. She said the Lord told her knew that this person was free. And so the Lord told her that this was my husband. And she said her first thing was, how do I get her eyes from where it is? So apparently, as soon as whatever happened, she was like, okay, bam, there it is. And so when I disappeared now, by that time, he was coming on the show, watching me and so on. But at this time, the Lord said to me, I'm going to bless you, but you say too much and you're not going to speak. And so I started close before he came in my life. The Lord said that to me. So that's why I thought it was this other person, because I just started having a closed mouth with everything. And the Lord just started, I just decided that I had to come off social media because I knew myself too, because I might say something. And again, he's very private. And so the whole dating season and everything, I just wasn't there. I just took a disappearing act. And also I wanted that time, you know, to spend, to bond, to get to know, you know, all of that. And the rest is history. I married my soulmate. I married my best friend. You know, we're best friends. If you come and see us, you'll never believe, you know, and I'm not going to say when we met, how long it took for us to get married and all of that, but all I can tell you, from right after I meet him, if he said to me, say, I'm ready to marry you. You know, two different personalities, very quiet. But like I said to people, my husband is a leader. Quietly, like he said to me the other day, I'm a quiet leader. I said, I know. I know. You know, so when you wait upon God, you know, he blesses you. And even when you maybe almost make your own mistake, he'll pull you out. We just have to just keep listening to the Holy Spirit. So yeah, so that is the Mr. Foote story.
Yes. Thank you for the Mr. Foote story. And Mr. Foote, I know you're there. And here, she was broken, but not shattered. And you have a wonderful woman there. And so take good care of her, as you are already doing. Yes, and congrats, Mr. Foote. Yes, you know, shouldn't like Talman, but God had other plans. And so when we're planning,
I've always wanted
you love tall men. Yes, you love tall men.
So that was what caught my attention. I never forget. I showed him the other day the picture. I said, this was the picture that catch me.
It's a setup, straight setup. And God just set you up, even when
me just love the look in my face.
It's a setup, a real setup. And so God will set you up. He will. He definitely
Yes, he will.
You know. And then all you can do is look back and laugh and say, God, you're not easy, you know. You know, you're not easy at all. And so we're crunching down and coming to the final segment, the book. You know, the books.
The books.
Of all,
I started writing this book when I came to the United States in 2015. It had a totally different name at the time, but I remember a friend of mine said to me, just write. But after writing chapter 1, I couldn't go any further because it was very hard to tell my story. I didn't know where it was going. And then it wasn't until maybe about, I'm trying to remember the timeline, about maybe 2019, 2020, that I started writing a little again. And I'm going to be frank with you, chapter 2, which is really my story. Some of what I've said, some of the things in there you haven't heard yet, so you need to buy the book. It was the last chapter I wrote because it was the hardest chapter to write because I had to be open. I had to be very candid. I had to make sure I wasn't hurting anybody. And then by the time I published the book in 2021, December. And by this time I was now married. And so one of the things I did was that I gave chapter 2 to my husband to read. So I was ready to publish, but I had to give it to him because I wanted him to make sure that there was nothing there that he was uncomfortable with. And so I gave it to him to read and impasse it. He's like, nothing there, you know, but the book was birthed, as I said, out of the fact that people are always asking me, how do you do it? And then what I tell a lot of people, anything that you're about to do, even though you know, I think I'm a natural when it comes to counseling people, when it comes to helping people. But again, you always need to learn from the experts. And so for about 2 years, I spent those 2 years doing a lot of, I did my coaching course after all this, but I went into sessions learning from some of the top coaches across the world. I bought their courses. I went into their session. I spent money. Sometimes you just my credit card, just making sure that I was learning from the best. Because a lot of time we want to do it ourselves and think we know everything, but that is important to learn. And so I did that to hear what they were saying. You know, I remember I had a coach he was in South Africa, and I was going on this class. My class started 2 o'clock in the morning, and it started from 2 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock every Saturday morning. And I was Robin Banks. I'm trying to remember Robin Banks, one of the top speakers and motivational speakers globally, and some of the very, very, very excellent. Les Brown, you know, people like those. These were some of the coaches that I tapped into, because if I wanted to do it, I wanted to learn from the best. And so I spent money to make sure that I learned. And so I did all of this too, helped me in completing the book, because now I understand how to deliver what I had inside of me. And most of all, I strongly believe that every word I wrote in this book was inspired by God. I talked to him. Like I talked to him, I was getting daily downloads. I had a big old book I had to walk with, because God just downloaded. I wrote some things in that book that made me feel like I was standing outside of myself, because I knew it was not all me. I knew I understood it, but I knew it was my journey, but I knew this was God. And so the book also serves as a journal for anybody, because at the end of every chapter, from chapter 3 through 6, it gives you a reflection. So you who buy the book now have to reflect on what is said, and see how you fit into this context. And so it's a journey for you. Broken but not shattered, I say, was not the original name, but I'm not going back to the original name. We are broken. Painful situations are coming to break you, but when you're broken, they can put you back together. But when you're shattered, the pieces are all over the place, and there are going to be some missing parts. And so that's why we can be broken, but don't bring yourself to the point where you lose it all, where you're shattered and you can't come back together. A journey, and it's a journey of intentionally. So it's something that you have to decide that I'm going to do this. I don't care what is happening. I remember when I was writing my book, my grandmother died and I was breaking. I wasn't shattered, I was breaking, and I had to understand. I couldn't go to Jamaica at the time, and I had to understand that it was last year. It wasn't last year, before last. And I had to understand that I had to keep my eyes focused on what I was doing. So I was breaking, but I could not. So you have to intentionally, you have to intent on it. This is where I'm going. This is where I'm going. You have to have tunnel vision. We got everything happening around you, but you have to have tunnel vision, you know. And then this intention helps you now to shift from pain into purpose. Now, this book is really Recite Your Letters with Ali Rabbit. It's an alphabet book with a difference. I did this book, my cousin called me and she's like, you know, I saw this. I think this is something that you can do. And like I said, I do everything for my books. I don't know if you can see them.
Yes,
I do the graphics, I do my book covers, I do everything. Every graphic you see inside of this book, everything. Let me see if you can, you maybe can't see the pages. Anything you see inside here, I do everything.
Yes, we're seeing.
Right. I do everything on my own. Now, after I did that book, my mom said to me, you know, I have a sister who is hearing impaired. I have a niece who is hearing impaired. And my mom said to me, how is Keisha going to, you know, understand the book? And so I was like, whoa, here's an idea for another book. And so I wrote this one, and this is called, and you can see the sign right there. And this one, you see signs right throughout. So it teaches you how to do the alphabet in sign language. That is called Learn Your Letters with Ali Rabbit. And the rabbit there's a rabbit throat that guides you. So it's like a fun thing. I did a launch at a preschool in Atlanta some time ago, and I have a song that goes with it. And the students, they were just eating it up. They were just eating it up. And, you know, it was really great. And the funny thing about it, this book sells more than this book. everybody, because it's something different. And this
Different, yeah.
this was birthed out of this one. So that's how question, more books in the making. Yes. Won't talk about what I'm writing right now, but yes. And I wrote this book in 2 weeks. And I think I'm not too sure how long I took for this one, but I don't think it's a month.
All right, guys, so there you have it. Trust me, an educator, entrepreneur, preacher, motivational speaker. And trust me, I don't know about you, but this girl is in my skin. This lady, this woman in my skin. And I really appreciate the fact that she's in my skin. She's, God sent her to be in my skin for such a time as this. And I do hope that, her story was so impactful that you can now put your blinders on, be intentional about your journey, about where you want to go in going, growing, and glowing in your purpose. So Miss Alicia Foote, I don't know if we're gone over time. I think we are way over time, but it was awesome. And, it was really awesome. And again, why I love this program so much, because we're unmasking real people with real stories. So thank you again, guys, for joining us this evening on season 2 of Voices Behind the Mask. And guess what, guys? You can hear more about her in the VIP room. Yes, yes, yes. I'll allow her to tell you a little bit more about the VIP room. So thanks for having me. And it was awesome being here. Over to you, Mrs. Foote.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. It felt so different being on Voices today. And again, anybody who knows me, and I know there are a lot of people in the audience right now who can put their hands up. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a pusher, and one of the things that Cassie and I said to her, I said, one of the things I know about you is that we have similar skill sets, and I'm not the type of person who believes that I want to be, the one who is always seen and so on. I believe in pushing people in if there's something inside of you that I see, I'm going to push you. Anybody who knows me knows that that's what I do. And so that is what I continue to do, so we have the VIP lounge. I hope people are subscribing for the VIP lounge. Everybody has a chance to subscribe. People in Jamaica were having a problem, and we made sure we set up something in Jamaica so that those who are in Jamaica can subscribe. Also, there's a YouTube channel. Remember that you need to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please get as many people as you can. Send it out to people. Let them subscribe as well, because you can go back and you can watch the previous episodes that were shown here. When you're coming on, this is not a private show. I've heard people ask that question. Oh, no, it's not a private show. You invite as many people as you want to. We appreciate that. Invite as many people as you want to invite. And also remember, there are a number of things that I do offer. I offer transformational coaching because I'm a transformational coach. I also offer, if you want to write, we also offer that my team and I, so this is not something I do alone. We have an editor, we have a proofreader, we have graphic designers, we have people who work as, so there's a team. So if you have a book to write, and we work with people who want to self-publish, you don't know what you want to do, or you need help with something, you can always set up an appointment and we can take it from there. There's a course coming up, the ASAP business plan. If you have a business, you plan to start a business, your business, most people have businesses, no plans. There is a whole bunch of things that Voices International is pushing out. And so just listen for this, and anything that I'm involved in is aimed at pushing people into where they're supposed to go. All right. And one thing I believe in also, because I was there, a lot of us either don't have any money in our pocket or not enough. And so we are catering to those people who might not be able to afford it at a certain level. We put it somewhere. So the course is coming out, but the course is going to come out for the early bird. It's going to be at the end of this month on the 29th, I think, I'm so sorry, I'm Jamaican coming out. It's going to be on the 29th. And you can register. Everything will be out there and you can register, because that is coming out. The early bird cost is $50. The course is actually $150. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff coming out. So right now, join us in the VIP room. Join us in the VIP room. Join us in the VIP room. If you're a paid VIP, do not leave the room. And if you intend to pay as a VIP, do not leave the room. All right. Every week I let in people free. There's some people getting free, and I give away the free VIP entrance every week to a few people, and some people don't know that, but I won't tell you how it works, but I do it every single week. Again, thank you all so much for coming on. Cassia, you were awesome. You were awesome. You are so good at what you do. The last program that you had, I was glued, and she has her programs as well. And I do support. I made sure I had nothing to do that Saturday, and I made sure that I supported you. And so that is what we're here for, supporting each other. Again, thank you all for listening to my story. And it's the first time I'm telling my story like this. You all are blessed. I don't talk my business now, and a lot of people know that. People see me and they don't know my story. All right. Again, thank you all so much for coming on. All right.
Great show, Lisa. Great show. I enjoyed it. Hi, Denise.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, have a good one.
Hi, Miss Jones. This is Miss Hawkins. I enjoyed myself. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Miss Hawkins. Love you.
Love you too, sweetie.
All right, blessings, everybody. And Miss Hawkins, you can stay for the VIP room. You'll be my VIP in the VIP room.
Thank you.
All right. Blessings, everybody. Have a good evening. And thank you all for coming on Voices Behind the Mask. We're on Mask, real people with real stories that are intended to impact and transform your life. This is where you go into your purpose, grow into your purpose, and glow when you peak in your purpose.